Welcome back. Now, as we mentioned earlier this week, a group of Democratic lawmakers here in the U.S. have proposed the new Stopping Grinch Bots Act. It takes aim at people who use automation to purchase hard-to-find items, beating everyday consumers to the punch.
Now, the general thought on this is that these nefarious actors use these bots to get into retailers' websites quickly before you can to buy up items like video game consoles, hot toys, and even limited edition sneakers, only to sell them on the secondary market at inflated prices. But as the Wall Street Journal has pointed out a few weeks ago, it's not just resellers. Parents have actually turned to bots to get their hands on items like Sony's PlayStation 5 for their loved ones this holiday season. So we want to go ahead and take a deeper look into this situation, and to do so, let's bring in Chuck Bell. He's an advocacy program director with Consumer Reports. Chuck, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Now, with high demand from consumers, there are often a lot of folks online trying to get these hot items. Do we really know how widespread of a problem bots are?
Well, cybersecurity firms have been estimating that bot activity has increased dramatically during the pandemic. And there are some retailers who have about 25% of their overall internet traffic coming from bots right now. So, for example, last year when Walmart put the Sony PlayStation 5 on sale, they got something like 20 million orders in the first 30 minutes from bots. But most retailers have taken technical measures to tighten up their security systems and try to resist these incursions. But it's a big game of cat and mouse, and there's a scale of the bots deployment is very great.
Now, when it comes to the response that we're seeing from Congress, we know we've got this new act, but it's actually not the first of its kind. In fact, back in 2016, Congress enacted the Bots Act, which had to do with stopping ticket brokers from buying up large numbers of event tickets and then selling them at higher prices. Did that really make a difference, and do you see new laws actually changing this practice moving forward?
Well, I think we're at the beginning of a new era where we have to consider what is ethical and appropriate conduct online. And the Bots Act, as it relates to ticket scalping, made that practice illegal. And it empowered the Federal Trade Commission and state attorney generals to prosecute people who engage in that activity in a malicious way to deny other concert-going fans tickets. So there was a significant prosecution or enforcement action in January of this year where 3 bot operators were fined $31 million. But it is also true that enforcement to date has been fairly limited. It's hard to get all the evidence that the state and federal authorities need to prosecute ticket scalpers. But we think it's an important step to say, yes, this activity is illegal and it needs to be discouraged in the marketplace, and we need to do what we can to stop it.
And Chuck, I mean, I guess I'm sorry, this is a bit of an intricate question here, but what is the illegal nature of it? Is it illegal to operate the bot and buy multiple sets of tickets, or is it illegal to sell them at an inflated price?
It's illegal to operate them, automated software programs that can file thousands of orders in a minute, much faster than any ordinary consumer could do. So the ordinary concert fan or sporting event fan doesn't have a fair chance to buy a ticket competing against the automated system. So it makes it an unfair and deceptive practice, and then that way attorney generals and the Federal Trade Commission can prosecute it under our consumer protection laws.
And you just mentioned this, but major retailers, they've kind of tried to stop it, but it seems like no matter what actually happens here, they're going to get paid. So whether it's a bot or a parent trying to get the product for their child, it really doesn't make a difference to them because in the end, they sold the same amount of units. So what is the incentive for them to actually make any effort towards this? And I have about 40 seconds for you.
Yeah, they don't want to have disappointing customers. I think they feel a certain affinity for people who are buying gifts for people at the holiday time, and they don't want to have their individual customers disappointed. And it also wreaks havoc with their retail security systems. So retailers are putting a lot of effort in trying to fend off Grinch bots, and we hope that this bill will pass and make them illegal in the Congress.
Chuck Bell of Consumer Reports, thank you so much for clarifying this situation. We really appreciate it. We'll have you back on.
Thank you so much.
Now, with all of this in mind, there is obviously a big community of, well, let's call them fledgling entrepreneurs who use bots to purchase items and flip them at a profit. And we didn't think it would be quite fair to not have that perspective in this conversation. So to do so, let's bring in Botter Boy Nova. He's a YouTube personality and reselling vlogger who actually practices this. Nova, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming on with us today. I guess I want to start off simple here. Botting became popular in event tickets, as we just mentioned, and more recently in sneaker culture, which is what most of your content is all about. What's the justification for botting and reselling those limited quantity items at a premium?
First of all, I want to say that botting is not required to buy limited items. The fact of the matter is, if something is in low supply, you have to put in more effort to get the item. So that could mean waiting in front of a physical line, maybe overnight sometimes. Despite what the person wants to do with that item by the time he buys it, somebody who buys it, who waits overnight, definitely deserves the item more so than somebody who just shows up 20 minutes late to a scheduled release. Now, in the online world, what that means is doing your research, studying the retailers and how to exactly purchase at the fastest way possible. And this can take hours and hours and multiple tries, however it is possible, even without a bot. Now, for botting, the only difference is the level of risk, because you can bot and absolutely get nothing from it. And you can spend $2,000, maybe even more on your botting setup. Some people spend tens of thousands of dollars on their botting setup. Sometimes they get absolutely nothing. So it is a big risk, and sometimes that risk does pay off. Now, both resellers and family members who do want to give presents for their kids, they all have the same goal, and that is to check out as many, or not as many, for that's the case for resellers, but the goal is to check out these limited items. Now, it's a matter of how much effort are you willing to put into it. And if you don't want to go through all of that, everything that I just said, then the resale price is just the fee that you pay for the convenience of not having to do that.
That's actually a really interesting way to look at it, and I appreciate the fact that you bring up that it is sort of an art form that a lot of consumers may not understand. And, you know, we're watching the manufacturers are getting paid. What does it mean for those consumers? In your experience, are they willing to pay that increased price and to have the convenience of having it go right to them without really having to understand what all is going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, so it is quite an inconvenience. However, the moral justification for it is that it's not really critical to anybody's well-being in terms of like consoles and sneakers anyway. But however, what is highly overlooked in the media is the stories of the resellers themselves, because the media portray them as essentially people without any, like they're absolutely stripped of any human characteristics, and they are painted as villains all the time. However, reselling does change lives. I've had a lot of messages, people saying, oh, I've been able to pay my medical bills, I've been able to pay my crippling student debt, I've been able to get out of poverty and start a sneaker store. These are some of the lives that have changed for the better because of reselling. And as a disclaimer, success is not guaranteed. However, the obvious catch is that luxury goods are a little bit more expensive, and they are a little bit more difficult to obtain because of botters and reseller. However, the fact of the matter is the opportunity is open to everybody.
Right, and I mean, obviously we should point out that not only do you obviously do all this, but you kind of show people the way that you do it so they can get in on it. Like you said, that's why they're telling you, hey, this changed my life. Now, as we kind of led this segment with this idea of legislation that might come out, if some sort of law is actually put into place that limits or even outlaws bots and reselling at higher prices, do you see that changing the practice, or will technology-savvy folks like yourself be able to actually figure out a way around all of it?
I always think there is a way around it, and also I haven't exactly looked at the law in terms of like the specifics, but there can be a lot of confusion. For example, if you've ever used Apple Pay, that in itself is an automation program, because that's where you store your address, store your credit card information. You definitely have an edge over people manually typing that in. So does that mean Apple Pay is going to get banned? Well, Apple's not going to be very happy with that. What about Google Chrome, or just any browser really that allows you to save your personal data? That automates the process of you having to type in all of your information, such as usernames and passwords, to be able to check out faster. So does that mean those are going to get banned? I don't know. But at the end of the day, if a human can do it, then the bot can do it as well.
Well, Botter Boy Nova, I really appreciate you coming on and adding clarity, and I think you're very well spoken about this issue, and obviously you're passionate about it. So thank you so much for coming on, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks for having me.